Hello and welcome to the TechCynics podcast, where we talk about the biggest tech, automotive, and gaming news for the week and take a deeper dive. I'm Govind.
And I'm Suhail. We started this podcast to bring a more nuanced and cynical take to technology news and trends. We got some amazing feedback from our first episode last week. Thanks to everyone who took time out to listen to our podcast and to those who've subscribed as well.
We're happy to announce that we're now live on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. So whatever your choice of platforms, we're available and we hope you keep listening to these.
Before we get into the topics of the day, if you like our content and want to hear more of our tech rants, hit the subscribe button below to show us your support. In this episode, in technology, the new OnePlus 10 and 10 Pro are finally launched in global markets this week. Are OnePlus users finally settling? A hardware subscription model may be in the works at Apple, and Intel's about to take the CPU performance crown from AMD. In automotive news, Ola scooters are finally reaching consumers, but one caught fire while another one won't stop going in reverse. What is happening? Is an electric or hybrid Innova in the cards for India? And manufacturers are paywalling higher trim features in cars. How does that affect the ownership experience? And finally, in gaming, Sony has finally prepared a response to Xbox's Game Pass. But is it good enough? Join us for episode 2 of this podcast as we talk about these news stories and more. All right, so we'll start with the news of the OnePlus 10 launching globally as of last week. So, Govind, what are your thoughts?
Long-time OnePlus customer, still using multiple OnePlus devices. I gotta say, this one, it wasn't that hyped. Usually there's a lot of fanfare and noise about OnePlus, especially their releases in India, right? So this used to be one of their premium sort of flagship alternative phones that was like super heavily marketed in India. But this time around, there was no noise. Like, in fact, I found out just like anybody else, just from tech news, right? In fact, I wasn't even notified about the India release. I was actually aware of the US release before the India release for whatever reason, right? That's the order in which the news came out. But usually OnePlus sends out emails to their existing customers. Maybe I missed these, but there definitely wasn't any noise about the OnePlus 10 or the 10 Pro coming out, right? It was just very sudden.
Which is pretty weird, right? I
know they focus. They focus a lot on the Red Cable Club. Of which I'm a member, right? Because I'm a OnePlus owner. It's pretty standard when it comes to that. But I think their marketing push wasn't done as heavily, even to their existing customers. I don't know, there might be some reason behind it, but
okay. So I was a long-time OnePlus 5 user until maybe 4 months ago. Before we talk about our experiences, we'll just quickly sort of go through the spec sheet in case anybody hasn't. I'm sure a lot of people actually haven't been informed based on your experience that this phone launched. So it's got a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 mobile platform. It's got supposedly super fast charging, the Super VOOC or Super VOOC charging with a 50-watt wireless charging capability. It now has an LTPO screen, which is the variable refresh rate. Yeah, the variable refresh rate that can actually
optimize battery usage.
Yeah, exactly. Go down to an extremely low frame rate to optimize battery usage. So this brings OnePlus to feature parity with, I guess, the Samsung flagship from last time. Yeah.
Exactly. And this was one of those cost-cutting moves as well, right? So earlier OnePlus, the Pro devices at least, didn't have the LTPO panels because it was too expensive to implement those. What is interesting for me is that wireless charging at 50 watts. You know what always, so to say, grinds my gears with wireless charging is you can buy a wireless charger. Like, there's tons of those available.
Yeah.
It never comes with a proper adapter. Right? It's very, very hard to find a proper adapter with a wireless charging puck, a Qi charger.
Right? I see.
It's not very optimal, right? When they say 50-watt wireless charger, fine. If you can use the same adapter, great. But if you're trying to market just that wireless charger, or if you're at all selling a wireless charger, I think you should include the option of an adapter as well. And this goes for all wireless chargers. This is a bit of a tangent on the OnePlus thing, but just generally wireless charging on its own,
Uh-huh.
It's yeah, this is where the roadblock is, right? So you buy a charging puck and then you have nothing to plug in, right? So to get the optimal wattage, so to
Yeah,
say,
yeah, yeah.
you need something that's compatible.
It's a real mess, right? These power delivery standards, because they're all based off of the same connector, USB-C, but then every company has their own sort of charge standard. OnePlus generally was good about this because of the so-called red cable sort of that was a unique brand identity that allowed OnePlus users to know, oh yeah, oh it's cool, this is a OnePlus cable, I should get dash charge or I could get warp charge. But yeah, you're right. Like there's a differentiation in the puck, the charging adapters, the wall warts as we call them here in the US. That changes. That is now changing between brands. It's a bit of a mess. Yes, it's I agree. But moving on, like I also wanted to talk about their Hasselblad collaboration, which started from the previous generation, which was been a bit of a mixed bag, right? Because they made a lot of noise about this camera collaboration, and in the previous
Yeah.
generation, when the reviews came out, the initial reviews at least weren't so great about the camera performance when compared to flagships, given how they were trying to position the phone, right?
I
So
mean, that's always been the case, right? So I mean,
that's true.
nobody's new to this. This
That's
is
true.
a branding opportunity. This is a way to boost sales. There's nothing more than that, right? So
Mm,
obviously, with phones nowadays, there's a lot of processing capacity to improve the picture quality.
yeah,
Now, bringing Hasselblad into the equation, it's more like, okay, so we have to have something to talk about
yeah.
besides everyone else, right? So you have all your different. What phone brand has Leica imaging?
I
Just
forget. I forget. Yeah.
yeah. So it's the same thing all over again, right? So it's all of these different flagship esque brands that feel the need
Mm,
to collaborate just to get a
mm-hmm.
marketing bump, right?
I see.
But in terms, I have a OnePlus disclosure, right? I have a OnePlus 9 that I'm using
Mm-hmm,
right now,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and it's got that Hasselblad collab.
mm-hmm,
Honestly, there aren't too many features that come off of that. I think there's one,
mm-hmm.
but it's not something that you use every day, or it's not a
Mm,
something that your go-to is going to be. It's just something
I
that's
see.
there just to close out that loop of branding.
I see. I see. Yeah. So it's interesting, but yeah. I had been waiting for probably 2 years to upgrade my OnePlus 5. I absolutely loved that phone. And at the time, I'm struggling to remember how much I paid for it. It was significantly less than flagships at the time. Uh, but the value proposition of the OnePlus 5 when compared to its competitors was fantastic. Yes, you did not
Yeah,
have you did not have wireless charging, and you did not have the IP rating for water resistance. Those were the only two things you were giving up for everything else was fantastic. You had pretty much class equivalent specs in terms of performance, storage, memory. Even displays weren't.
headphone jack.
I mean, so
I know that
I
that ship has sailed,
that's
right?
that
It's,
that ship has definitely sailed, I guess. But yeah, it that value proposition has been diminishing generation after generation since because of the price creep. And yeah, that's a good segue into actually the prices for the OnePlus 10. So in the US, only the Pro has been released. The 8 GB 128 version of the Pro, the 256 apparently is coming soon. And in the US, it's 899, so 900 US dollars for that phone, which is pretty steep. Um,
right.
it is pretty comparable to what you would pay for the base, I guess, iPhone 13. You generally don't
Yeah,
get the pros. You might have to pay another $100 to get an iPhone 13 Pro. But then, like maybe with another $150, you get an iPhone, which is a big deal in the US, right? So,
yeah,
like there's a lot that you give up by not being in the iPhone ecosystem in the US. iMessage is bigger than WhatsApp, at least with the local in the local market here in the US.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's exactly $100 cheaper than the iPhone 13 Pro. but man, it's you know it's 900 versus
Hold
$1,000.
on. It's $100 cheaper than the iPhone 13 Pro. So
Yes.
not the 13, right?
Yeah, the Pro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very competitive space, right?
Yeah.
So that's where all your Android flagships are going to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, good on iPhone for I mean OnePlus for getting there, to that price point. But that's not what they've been selling so far.
And I mean, like, so if you look at the like the Apple page in the US, the iPhone 13 sells for exactly what they're asking for OnePlus, right? It's 799 just for the base
Right.
iPhone 13. And there are a lot of people who prefer smaller phones. If you prefer the 13 mini, which has exactly the same specs as the 13, you can save
Mm.
$100, in fact. And I don't know what the sales figures are for those two submodels, but people, there are a lot of people who are happy that iPhones are or Apple is releasing a smaller iPhone. You know,
Yeah, I
because
know there's been some noise about the 12 mini ever since it came out and the
yeah,
13 mini
yeah,
after,
yeah,
right? Obviously, if they wasn't successful, then they wouldn't put it out. It's Apple,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
they're not
yeah,
they're not going to put out a 13 mini if the 12 mini didn't make a lot of sales.
yep.
Um, absolutely right. Like I know, like people within the circles that I go around, um, people were really huge fans of that iPhone 5, iPhone SE
Hmm.
size
Hmm.
and form factor.
Yep, yep.
Um, and now, while this isn't exactly the same size, but it is considerably smaller than the regular size iPhone, which is quite
Mm,
big by itself. Because
yep,
yeah, don't even talk about the pros. Just the regular iPhone itself
yep.
is huge.
Oh yeah,
So as
absolutely.
soon as you put a case on it, it's just massive.
Yeah. The other topic I wanted to talk about was Apple's growth, especially in the smartphone space in India, and the ultra premium smartphone segment. This is again news from last year, but it was sort of the
Right.
latest information that I could get that's public. Was that the ultra premium smartphone segment grew by approximately 60 to 80% and was mostly driven by Apple. This ultra premium
Wow.
segment is defined as the segment above $700. And what was interesting about this news article was that they attributed it to actually COVID. So people who did still manage to keep a job or were okay financially, generally the people who are targets of this ultra premium segment, the fact that COVID hampered other discretionary spends like outings
Yeah.
and vacations and things like that. People went ahead and took that money and spent it on things, right? So like, and
Yeah.
and Apple's growth has been absolutely spectacular. So this chart that I'm showing on screen shows Apple at a 49% market share in this ultra premium segment, followed by OnePlus at 32% and Samsung only at 9%. This was as of
Do you
Q2
know
2021. Yeah.
if do you know if some of that might be results of, well, COVID, yes,
Hmm.
but more of enterprise purchases happening on iPhones? Because I know a lot of enterprise customers who need to buy a lot of these mobile devices for their employees and everything. They would
Interesting.
like to have the um, backing of sort of Apple when it comes to security, right?
Interesting, because Apple's not the
It
first
could drive
brand.
up sales a lot.
Yeah, Apple's not the first brand that I think of when it comes to enterprise. But then again, which phone is? Since the BlackBerry died, there hasn't been a phone that is exclusively enterprise, right? BlackBerry was the enterprise phone for the longest time because of how much enterprise support they gave, right? Like it was the way to have email on your phone, enterprise email on your phone. You could buy a BlackBerry box and keep it on premises. That handled, it was your mail exchange server for BlackBerry, and it was, it had all of the encryption standards. Your data was localized to your enterprise. That world has long gone since the disappearance of BlackBerry. So I'm not sure exactly, like I don't have enough
I don't
information to
think
kind of talk
it
about it.
would work the same way with Apple or iPhone.
Yeah, I mean that
It's
model has
more the
changed. Yeah.
case of all your MDMs, right, or mobile device management
Mm,
softwares that
I see. Yeah.
enterprises need to use
Yeah.
I think those have a lot more stricter controls when it comes to iOS devices
Yep.
rather than Android ones, right? So um, there, I'm just putting it out there, devil's advocate, right? So if that could be a driver for that sales figure for Apple phones during COVID,
I
just
see.
skyrocketing. I'm sure it's people, spending their money in, towards Apple's pockets rather than going on vacation.
Yeah.
But this could be a thing as well. Just speculative.
I mean,
Could be a thing.
the other thing that's also interesting is that this purchase is more of a I forget what the word is, like, colloquially we'd call it a flex, right? But there's this word that people use in the automotive segment. It escapes me what it's called. It's like not like ambitious, but it's kind of like a anyway. So generally, if you're spending that amount of money, you're getting close to 1 lakh or above for your phone, a handheld device that you're carrying around in India. There are phones that are more expensive than the iPhone. There are the Samsung foldables, right? Those would also be a flex, but I feel like to a large segment of the population, showing people that you have an iPhone is still more prestigious than showing that, oh, I have a Samsung, which also happens to make 20K, 30K, 10K rupee phones, right, in India. So maybe that's
true.
some of the psychology behind it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no doubt there, right? So it's
Yeah.
about the badge. It's
Yep.
nothing
Yep.
else, right? So
Yep. Yep.
it's just the same reason as if someone were to buy, let's say, a BMW that's
Yep.
used
Yep. Exactly. I was thinking of
versus
premium
a new
cars.
something
Yeah.
else, right? So just premium car that's used versus something that's brand new that's affordable
Yep.
to them.
Yep. Yep.
At that point, it's just about the badge. And, I'm sure, I could be wrong, but I'm sure that this would reflect the same way when you look at the iPhone per SKU sales, right? So they're probably pushing a lot more of their entry level phones with your base configurations
Yep.
rather than the premium ones, right? Because the jumps that Apple does just to get more storage
Yep.
is quite substantial. That people are not going to do that jump unless they have a valid reason to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And specifically in the price sensitive market that we are in India, I don't see a lot of people doing that just to get an iPhone and make sure that it's the most premium one, right? If it was visually different, like if you go to gold iPhone, yeah, people are going to talk about it. That's a flex, like you
Yeah.
said, right? So
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
flex.
Yep.
But specking it up to have 1 TB of storage
Yeah.
is not going to get you anything, right? It's an iPhone. That's it.
And the genius of Apple when it came to having that camera differentiation between the Pro and non-Pro by having two very large visible circles versus three very large visible circles. Because just across the room, or just somebody holding the phone, immediately it is visible and apparent that, oh, this guy has an
I know.
iPhone Pro. Oh my
And
God.
And they have those stickers now, right? So which you can mock your iPhone to become a pro, like just stick on another camera
Oh
lens.
my God. Oh my God.
I know you have a good adage from someone in your family about what it looks like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So disclosure, I have an iPhone 13 Pro. That's what I eventually transitioned to from the OnePlus 5.
OnePlus.
And when I took my phone and kind of showed it off to my dad over a video call, he looked at it. He has no idea about the cell phone market, right? He's not like a big technology enthusiast like some of us are. So I took my phone and I was like kind of proudly showing it off, like, hey, look at me, I'm part of the three camera club, or so forth. And he looked at it and he was like, your phone looks like a coconut. So that was really funny. It was just like because
It's going to take a while for people to get that. I in the risk of ruining the joke with
Yeah.
explaining it.
Yeah.
It's the bottom of a coconut, if you're familiar
Yeah.
with it, has these little dots.
Yeah, the eyes of the coconut, as they call them. Yeah. Or to other people, to people who may not have actually seen a coconut, it looks like a bowling ball.
Right.
The
also true.
holes. Yeah, the
Also
holes
true.
on a bowling ball. Yep, absolutely. But yeah, again,
So
another.
going back,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, just going back on OnePlus, right? Since you mentioned it again, we're going to look at how OnePlus is now a sub brand. It's not even a brand by itself. It's a sub brand
Oh yeah.
of the
Yeah.
parent company, right? So they've had that little merger now recently with Oppo,
Yep.
right? And that's a big step. I'd argue that's the biggest step for OnePlus,
Mm.
enthusiasts or hardcore enthusiasts of OnePlus phones.
Yeah.
Is what you've essentially done is take one of the biggest propositions from your phone and throw it out the window, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oxygen OS was
Yeah.
the nearest thing you could have to getting a, pretty standard Google Android experience, right?
Oh,
So that's,
absolutely.
in fact, I could argue that it was even better than the standard one because you had these little cool customizations that you could do, which weren't too heavy, right? It
And
was
optional.
completely cool, necessary,
And
and
optional.
optional.
Yes.
And it wasn't bloaty. It
Yep.
wasn't like some other brands do, where they push a bunch of stuff to you just for the sake of, they've signed up with somebody else to do that on every device. So essentially, what they've done is throw all of that out. OnePlus One all the way to OnePlus 9.5. I would say 9.5 because I have my OnePlus 9 and it got upgraded recently in January, right? So until then I was happy, and to be honest, like I was a little disappointed, right? As soon as this change happened,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the same features are there. To be fair to it, a lot of the same
Yeah.
features are there, but you've essentially thrown out that core Android experience where keeping it bare bones was very close to the brand.
Yeah, yeah. And the image that I'm sharing on screen for the video version of the podcast is essentially OnePlus's current strategy now that they've become a sub brand or a sibling brand to Oppo, is that the Oxygen OS which is what OnePlus uses on their phones, now shares a unified OS code base with Color OS, which makes sense since these are all part of the same sort of parent company. But it looks like the company's focus is to get out the Chinese versions of these phones first, which is what we saw with OnePlus this time around as well. There was a full month or month and a half between the OnePlus 10's release in China versus the global release that happened, say, 2 days ago. And the kinks in this new code base or managing operating system releases using this new model have not been fully worked out, which is kind of the reason for the delay of the release of the OnePlus 10, as reported by multiple news outlets. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I was a huge fan of Oxygen OS. I was coming from the OnePlus 5. The amount of feature updates that OnePlus gave us without any promise of that from when you were buying the phone. Like the biggest example I can think of was, yes, we had a fingerprint reader, but when we jumped to the next version of Android on OnePlus 5, OnePlus was like, "Hey, guess what? We're going to give you Face ID for free." it was absolutely spectacular.
And it was fast.
It was
fast. Really fast.
Yeah, it was fast.
So they could have done that from the start, but they just held back. Some other brands would have just kept it for the new model.
No, it was not necessarily that it was held back, but it was because that concept didn't exist until Apple came out with the iPhone 10. And then they were like, "Hey, wait a minute! This is actually not that difficult to do. We just a little bit of camera trickery here, a little bit of machine learning there, and you have it." And they.
I mean, to be fair,
yeah.
it isn't as sophisticated as Face ID on iOS, right? So that's not the same thing.
There's no depth sensor. I think they also give you a warning that it's not as secure. It could be fooled by a photo of your face, sometimes because they can't perceive depth, right? So yeah, it's. And my experience with that OnePlus 5 has been so good in terms of the like how long OnePlus supported it. We got, I think, 3 whole mainline Android updates, if I'm not mistaken. Like we went from
they've standardized those now. I think you get two OS upgrades, which are like full-fledged, complete new versions of Android, and then another 3 years of security updates.
Yeah,
I think that's it. Their life cycle is 5 years. I think that's set. After that, you don't get any support, is what I think is accurate.
And 5 years is fantastic for a phone. 5 years is sort of the benchmark, like, because
it's hard to say that anymore. So it's like, I mean, it used to be the case, right?
I see. Okay.
Previously, if you had a phone and you didn't have a flagship phone, you would be struggling to push it past 3 years. Like battery issues aside.
Yeah.
Battery issues aside, you'd be struggling to push. But nowadays, phones are so good that they're going to last you a while before you have to upgrade.
And there isn't much.
And the
And all updates are incremental, right? There are no
Yeah,
major feature updates that make you say, you know what, oh, I need to ditch this phone and get the next one. Those updates are so
exactly.
incremental. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
And just the evolution of both of the mainstream operating systems
Yeah.
is not, like you said, it's incremental. It's not like night and day where everything's different about it, including
Mm-hmm.
all your, uh, all the stuff that plays around with any of the hardware
Mm-hmm.
optimization of the phone.
Yeah.
So it's going to run for longer. Besides the battery thing,
Mm,
battery, once you replace, you probably get another life out of it. But
yeah. Yeah.
besides the battery, everything is, it's stretchable to about, I would say, safely. A lot of people can get away with 6 to 7 years on a phone.
Mm, mm. 6 to 7, yeah. If they
If
bought a
you're stretching it,
and if you bought a
if you
flagship at that time, yeah,
exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
conditional. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's possible. But yeah, just capping off the discussion on OnePlus, like so, we'll talk about kind of what the future looks like or at least nobody can predict the future, obviously, but our impressions of how OnePlus is gonna go forward. So, like the thing that I want to say is, OnePlus has clearly pivoted away from their famous slogan of "never settle." Like, so if you're buying a OnePlus 10 Pro, you are settling at this point. Yes, you're paying marginally less
Yeah.
for a smaller value proposition. So you are basically settling for OnePlus at this point. And it's very
Yeah.
different from when you were buying a OnePlus 5 or OnePlus 6. And that's what I feel.
It's
How
a
about
lot of noise in that same pricing space also. It's not like
yeah.
the earlier days of OnePlus where they were competing in a mid segment where,
Mm,
their pricing was very small, but then you were
yeah.
getting all the flagship features, or at least 95% of the flagship features, which was a good proposition. But now they're competing in the flagship space, and they're not going to make a good effort out of it, because why would you
Mm,
go for a OnePlus device when you have
yeah.
more established brands putting out more technologically, arguably technologically superior products, right?
Hmm.
So like
Hmm.
Samsung, right? So they're
Yeah.
always on the epitome of all the tech advancement, right? So if you get a flagship device from Samsung, you know that they've driven at least one of those components within that device
Mm,
based on their own R&D, right?
yeah.
So you know how Samsung gives out their panels to
Oh yeah.
Apple and everything else, right? So they do a lot of development by themselves. Now, why wouldn't you go for that like first-hand benefit?
Yep.
It's the same thing like the LTPO panel on OnePlus 10 Pro now, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
Why didn't they do that last year? They didn't do that last year because it was expensive to do that last year.
Yes. Yes. And supply chain and all that stuff. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay. So let's transition over to the another subtopic, which is in the technology space, which is Apple is working on a hardware subscription service for iPhones, and this was reported by Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, very respected technology writer, actually. Um, so yeah, the rumor has it that Apple's now working on a subscription service for iPhone and other hardware products. So you will pay sort of like a monthly fee, and they would basically move over to a subscription model with sort of like guaranteed monthly income versus a big product launch and getting people to shell out or finance a new hardware purchase. um, and
I like this.
yeah, it's I'm a little mixed about this idea, but yeah, I definitely see the benefit. It's definitely interesting, right? So go in, like,
I
so
like
tell
this for
me,
the
tell me.
Apple. I like the Apple fanboy perspective of this. Okay,
I
so
see. Okay.
see, the thing is, if you were buying into that space and saying that, okay, I want to be an iPhone's user, and that's what is going to make me happy,
Mm,
then good on you. That's fine, right? They're great phones, but in the end of it, you're not switching back to Android. I've not seen that happen to date. To be honest, I've not
mm,
seen any iPhone user that I know that's switching back to Android for whatever reason, right? Unless
mm,
it's Apple's done them really wrong, they're not switching back. They're in that
yeah.
ecosystem. They want to be there, and they're iPhone users. That's it.
Mm,
But when it comes to people like that, um, they want the next upgrade. It's just that they choose not to upgrade because their previous generation phone was pretty good. Like
mm,
it's not going to go sideways just within a year, right? So it's good for those people who want an iPhone and they want to continue using iPhones.
Okay.
And if this subscription model from Apple means, which I think I read somewhere, that you get every incremental update of that iPhone and you got to return the old one back. If that's the case, then it's worth it. And like you were saying, that whole financing bit, right?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people buy these phones not outright. They buy it like, on a finance plan where they're, paying monthly.
Or cell phone plan.
This
Yep.
is a
Yep.
good alternative. Yeah, this is
Yep.
a good alternative, or on a cell phone contract plan,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and those contract plans are usually 3 years where you're stuck with the same phone for that period. And if this is yearly,
Yeah. So,
good.
so in the US, this type of free upgrade path to the latest phone has been around for a while in the US from different carriers.
Yeah.
So this is definitely Apple muscling in on that carrier territory. So, for example, if you're on T-Mobile and you get their highest plan and you buy a phone off of their plan and you pay a little extra, you can have like something called like a 360 complete peace of mind with free upgrade sort of path. So it's like you get an iPhone. If you lose it or if you destroy it, you get a new version of the same. You get the same phone replaced at no additional cost. And when the next iPhone comes out, you get the new upgrade. But I think if you are, like you said, an Apple fanboy and you're really tied into the Apple ecosystem and you're anyway paying for the Apple subscription services, you're paying for iCloud storage, you're paying for Fitness Plus, you're paying for Apple TV Plus,
Apple TV,
all of that stuff, then, I think people are more likely to say, hey, you know what, let me just add another line item to that bill, and that's my hardware purchase. And it's definitely going to be interesting. And according to the Bloomberg article, when this sort of news was reported by Bloomberg, Apple shares closed up 2.3%. So, the markets also think that this is a good idea because it looks like it'll make money from this, right? So
yeah, I mean, Apple's not getting involved where it's not going to try to make money, right? So
for sure.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's definitely in the benefit of them making more money. But but I see this as a good thing, right? So I mean, I usually go err on the other side of saying that, okay, this is not good, or they're up to something. But this I can see. I can see people doing this, and I can see how Apple is going to make their foothold of mobile penetration ubiquitous, right? So if you have an iPhone and everybody's like on a subscription, especially in the US, if you've got a subscription plan phone, you're going to go to replace it. You can do that in any Apple store.
Yeah.
It's going to be easy for you to do, right? So you don't have to deal with your carrier for all kinds of these hidden star-based terms of why you shouldn't be changing and how much you would get charged to change, or if you lose your phone or all of that stuff.
Yep. I agree.
Just keeping it all in the same house.
Okay. The next bit of tech news from this week was that Intel's planning to launch the world's fastest desktop CPU on April 5. This is the Core i9 12900KS. On its own, this news isn't as interesting as sort of the context behind it, which is the fact that we've been talking a lot about Apple. This is Intel. Intel has been sort of on the sort of defensive side for quite some time. They were in terms of performance, especially with their CPUs, right? Because that's their biggest market is Intel CPUs. They ceded they ceded a lot of ground to AMD in the desktop or even in the server space because of AMD's platform. The Ryzen platform that came out had generational leaps and advances over Intel, generation after generation, in fact. And Intel's been sort of trying to catch up for quite some time.
Yeah.
So even if Intel's releasing this and they will be the world's fastest on April 5th, it's very likely that there'll be an answer from AMD very soon.
One more Threadripper.
Yeah, there'll be another Threadripper, another Ryzen chip that'll regain discount. But it's great that this back and forth is happening because it's only better for the consumer.
It's good for consumers.
Exactly.
It's good for consumers.
Exactly.
Now, for now, Intel is doing this, right? So they want to get into the whole integrated GPU kind of space as well, and discrete GPU space as well from Intel. So that's going to be interesting from them, especially with established competition, which is again one of them is AMD, and you have Nvidia as well, right? But Nvidia is going on a whole different tangent, right? So
Nvidia
Nvidia's
doesn't.
whole thing is
Go ahead.
it's no, I was just going to say that Nvidia has this whole different tangent exercise happening with all their GPUs being focused at stuff like autonomous driving and supporting OEMs with their, training their models and stuff. So they have that thing happening for them. So Nvidia is kind of pushing the envelope when it comes to going more enterprise than consumer. Like Nvidia is very, very, very focused on just gaming, consumer gaming, all of that stuff.
But they're pretty heavy in data centers as well, right? Because of machine learning and
exactly
GPU stuff.
So these days, like the past few years, they've been pushing quite heavily into that whole space where enterprise matters a lot, data processing, machine learning, all of that stuff, where autonomous driving, all of these things which require a lot of compute power. They're getting involved in that space. I'm not sure if AMD is doing the same thing with their GPU lines.
So AMD's GPU line hasn't been popular for compute, where because they don't support the biggest API, which is a Nvidia API. It's called CUDA. So CUDA is the main compute API that is used by serious machine learning folks and things like that. And that's just, it's not open source. It's not available to other platforms. It's an Nvidia lock-in. So AMD has always struggled in that compute space that way. So that market doesn't really work for them. And yes, AMD has lagged quite a bit to Nvidia in terms of GPU for many generations now. AMD has turned into that value GPU brand, but the space where AMD can make up ground in terms of gaming and pushing gaming GPU numbers is consoles. So AMD is exclusively on all the current generation consoles. All current generation consoles are using AMD APUs, right? So whether it doesn't matter if you're a PS or Xbox, you have an AMD APU on board.
Exactly. Either of those boats, you're getting AMD. But here's the thing, right? What is the console penetration? Like, you can't get one. We talked about this last time. Like, you can't get a console, so they're not putting out that many units either. So that's the point in the end of the day. And besides that big corpo deal that they got for that action.
So Linus just reported, and I'm actually starting to see this here in the US at least, that GPU prices are finally coming down to reasonable levels.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see how things are going. Also, consoles are starting to be in stock. It seems to be easier to get a Series X or a PS5. So it's finally easing up. We'll see how things go. Okay. All right.
Cool.
So let's see. We'll do one last tech topic before moving on to automotives. We've got a lot of automotive topics to talk about this week. We have
I'm excited.
we have a company called Mojo Vision or Mojo Vision that I guess Mojo Vision. I guess
it's Mojo.
Yeah. So they are bringing eye tracking and display-enabled contact lenses one step closer to reality. So this is either amazing or dystopian.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. Like, as soon as I saw this this week, I was like, damn, like, I'm scared of putting in regular contact lenses. So now we're talking about contact lenses, which are basically going to augment my reality as well.
Yeah.
This is very scary on many levels, right? So the eye itself is very sensitive as an organ. Now we're talking about pushing stuff into it where a lot of things can go wrong.
Yeah. This reminds me of Black Mirror. And like this episode in Black Mirror where they actually this is pretty common among all users of technology in the future, that they have these contact lens based AR solution, as they walk around. The information is appended or imprinted into the
Right.
into the view of the user. And yeah,
Right.
it's crazy. I don't know what to think about it.
So I like it. I like it, but I would rather just do glasses. Like, what are you doing? Like, figure out glasses first. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
like
That's true.
people have to figure out HMDs and glasses first. Like, what are you going into the eye for?
You raise a really interesting point. So for in the
Like,
HMD glass space, there's multiple prototypes, right? So the
yeah,
earliest one
and a lot
was
have been promising.
so
A lot of them have been promising.
but a lot of them abandoned for whatever, like for whatever reason,
Yeah,
either lack of interest or some other issue. Like
yeah,
the biggest example was, Google Glass came out very early. Maybe it was too soon, and
and
then
too expensive.
and too
Let's not
expensive.
forget that it was like
Microsoft
$1,800 or something like that.
Microsoft was pushing HoloLens heavily, and there are rumors that
Yeah,
they've kind of abandoned it. But if you talk to Microsoft officially, they'll say, no, we have not abandoned it. This is
aren't they doing
information
Hololens too?
they were supposed to, but it's been quiet on that front for some time. So people
Mm.
don't know what the situation is. Maybe it's a wait and watch to see what's happening with Meta.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and
So
Microsoft
the
was
Quest,
yeah. So the Quest is VR, right? Which is very different from
yeah,
AR. So
exactly. So I was going to say is AR or XR, as it was later known,
mhm.
is extended reality, right? So
Oh, I see.
that's the mixture of what they're calling these devices now, or
Mm,
at least they used to be. I think they're calling them something entirely different right now. Um,
mm,
I can't remember what it's called right now, but anyway, XR, it's a good space. And I think what is most promising about it, and what was different about it as a proposition compared to VR,
mhm.
which when VR came out, everybody wanted, to be involved. And in the end of it, what happened really, right? So it was very specific use cases, and consumers didn't really like it because you couldn't see the environment around you. You had all these viral
Mhm.
videos of people breaking their TVs and
Mhm.
getting
Yep,
getting
yep,
cyber sickness and all of that stuff.
yep.
So with all of these projects with extended reality,
Mhm.
there is a lot of use cases where this could be really good, you know. I
Yeah,
mean, but I think what is most important is bringing that price point down.
yeah,
Without bringing the price point down, adoption is going to be really tough. And
yeah.
that's bringing me back to the very important point that Meta now
Mhm. Mhm.
is now working on subsidizing the Quest devices. That's why I started out with Quest, right?
Yeah,
So pricing is very important. So Meta is working on subsidizing all the Quest devices or the Quest 2 devices
yeah.
so that adoption goes up. Even if they take a hit on profits, they
Oh,
want
yeah.
people to adopt.
Yep. No, that's true. So in the US, it's very visible in the sense that if you step into any retail space that sells, technology stuff, like if you go to a Target or a Costco or a Best Buy, uh, Meta is spending a lot of money in terms of making the Oculus visible, especially during
Mhm.
like the holiday season, and whenever the main spending months are for retail spending avenues. um, the problem is Oculus is really suffering, or VR is really suffering for that that killer VR app. And so far, it's only been Beat Saber, because Beat Saber is
Mm.
the big killer. Until now it's been the killer VR app, but there's only so
Yeah.
long that people will play that, and they'll start for other VR experiences, and we're still not seeing VR experiences that are coming close to that level of
But
excitement and things like that. Yeah.
exactly, VR is we've moved past VR. Okay, so
Hmm.
I think in the late 90s, and I think I discussed with you a few weeks ago on this one, was like late 90s, we had this thing called the Glasstron from Sony.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I mean, if in the 90s they could figure out how to put a large screen TV in front of you just from a pair of glasses,
Yeah,
and it had no side effects and no problems, I think it
yeah.
would have been like caught on much sooner, right? It would have been a pretty standard use case in
Uh-huh.
everybody's daily life, right?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest block is with VR, especially, is that there is no transparency mode. There you go.
Mm.
That's class on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There is
the
no
glass strong.
transparency
Yeah,
mode. So
yeah.
your you can't use this everywhere. You can only use this as a substitute for watching a movie or, that engaging experience that only you're enjoying,
Yeah.
right? The other AR company that really needs to be watched right now is Magic Leap.
Oh, yes.
They're working on that Magic Leap 2, which is also getting pretty good traction, right? So same levels of traction as we saw HoloLens get when it was first announced. So I think they're working on the second prototype, and it looks a lot better. Can you pull that up on screen? Magic
Oh,
Leap.
yeah, sure. Yeah, give me a second. Keep talking.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah. So I think what is great about this is just the level of portability that this brings. And this is basically a pair of glasses, right? It's a little heavier than a pair of glasses, but look at that. Stay there. Yeah. So look at that. That's the entire thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a little chunkier, but
Yes.
they're basically glasses. They're not full on like head mounted devices where like you're
Right.
basically wearing a box on your face, right? So that's not what this is.
Yeah.
So this is a lot better.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
this
does
is another
it does
company that we need to
yeah,
look at.
it does make you look a little bit like Doc Ock though from the Spider-Man movies, but that's fine. That's like, that's not as much of a problem.
Yeah.
All right. So, and with that, we can transition over to our automotive stories of the week. Govind, you want to
Right.
get started?
Sure. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening, especially in India right now, right? So last time around, we spoke about the whole EV segment and how it's going to be dominated by the two-wheeler segment, and how they can really rise adoption levels based on just two-wheelers being sold, and that's what most of the people need. The mass market is two-wheeler and all of that. And we talked about a little about the most popular company or the most hyped company that's coming to town and started deliveries of these two-wheeler scooters, right? Which was Ola. And surprise, surprise, there's some teething issues, right? So we had last week reports of an Ola scooter catching fire randomly.
Oh, wow.
That's not a good look for something that's just started deliveries after a lot of delays, much like Tesla did, right? So after all these delays, they started delivering these scooters, and now they look like this. And this kind of this PR isn't very good for anybody in India looking to target EVs as their next big purchase.
Yeah. So
sticking to Ola,
yeah,
just sticking to Ola, there's also other problems, right? So the other problems, I read this report on how an Ola scooter got stuck in its reverse mode, going about 90 kilometers an hour.
Wow. Did you just say
Well,
90 kilometers an hour
90.
in reverse?
I was like, who, what, why, and how?
How is that? Oh, 90 kilometers an hour. Okay, it was on its side. It was not somebody going 90 kilometers an hour on the.
Okay.
That makes
that makes sense.
Okay, thank God.
Freewheeling. Okay, freewheeling 90. Okay, that's not bad.
That makes sense. That's a lot better. But yeah.
I was trying to picture in my head like somebody doing 90 going backwards. I really got to back up.
Yeah, just to talk about the the issues with Ola and the sort of battery pack catching fire. This is a known issue with a lot of EVs, and this has plagued Tesla as well. And it basically boils down to the fact that you have all of this power, right? All of this energy that's being concentrated into a small space in the lithium-ion battery.
Yeah.
And, they are extremely flammable. In fact, they will immediately react to oxygen in the air and catch fire if the cell is ruptured or broken. So this is a definite risk for EV platforms in India, where we tend to be a lot more rough with our vehicles just because of the road conditions and the the traffic density and all of these other issues that
in general the use case as well, right? So
like
might carry more than what you're supposed to.
It's what's really striking for me whenever I travel from the US back to India on vacation and I spend some time in a large tier 1 city like Delhi or Bangalore, like is how bumped up cars are. right? You can see the amount of dents, especially on taxi vehicles, because usually, it's either not owned by the driver, or, they just have that much mileage going on, right? Like they have all of these intercity trips that they're
Yeah.
doing, or inner city trips that they're doing. But in general, yeah, driving in India is a contact sport, and 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 as
I
a
like that.
yeah, and as a result, like EVs probably need a lot more protection in terms of padding, underbody protection, right? Because of
Yeah.
cell rupture and all of those issues caused by bad road conditions, bad drivers, things like that are much more higher. So
Yeah.
if somebody were to do an actual study on these things, I think they can actually show empirically and through simulation that it's a lot more dangerous in that sense. Like the risk of EVs
Yeah.
catching fire in India, especially in super price sensitive platforms like the Ola scooter, for example, right? Like you would build to a
Yeah.
specific price point, so then you're going to make these engineering decisions of like, how much sheet metal can I scrap in this area? How much trussing or cladding can I, like you would make those design optimizations to hit a certain price point. And if you did that,
Yeah.
you are now going to start compromising on safety. And it depends on like, what trade-offs your company are doing. So this is going to be really interesting going forward. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's again like a lot of topics that we cover on this podcast is like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. This is going to be interesting.
Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
that's part of it. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of technology is that, right? A
Yeah.
lot of technology is sitting and waiting, playing the waiting game. Unless you're very much within that space, it's a lot of waiting game and figuring out what
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
next, and
Yeah.
what's going to come out next, and what's going to be big next, and what's going to explode, and what's going to blow up, and so on. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be a little bit of this.
This is definitely going to spook a lot of buyers for sure. So moving on to our next topic, there was news this week that there is going to be an electric version of the Innova, aka the Innova EV. This was reported on by multiple news outlets, and I want to say that this was first unveiled in Indonesia. Is that right? Okay. So yeah, this is definitely going to be interesting because the Innova, in its class at least, is definitely the class leading MPV in India. People are prepared to pay an exorbitant premium for this car in India, which is pretty interesting because the car segment in India is generally price sensitive. But Toyota seems to beat that for certain vehicles that they make, especially the Innova and to some extent the Fortuner. And the fact that there's now an electric concept coming out for this vehicle, that's going to be really interesting for the EV market in India. So thoughts, Govind?
Before I get into anything, that vinyl, that decal on the side is what it like. Why is Toyota rolling back to 2008? Like, this is giving me bad memories. They shouldn't have done that vinyl. Like, it's so cheesy, dude. Like, it's not anything that people these days want.
Yeah.
And it's like shouting about it being an EV. Like, it's blue. All the accents around the headlights are blue.
Yeah.
Like, it's way too much EV stuff. It's like them going out of their way saying, "Hey, look, we did one too."
Yeah.
And with this kind of car, it's a people mover, right? So
Yeah.
people mover EVs, there aren't that many around, to be honest, right? There aren't, even stateside, even everywhere else. There aren't too many people mover EVs. I don't think I recall seeing anyone, but that's going to be interesting, right? So for both range, which people movers need,
Yep.
and also what the EV platform. I don't think because this is not a bespoke EV platform. They might have, I don't know how it's affected the space. Do we have any knowledge on that? How it's affected space?
I have no idea
Because
actually.
if it's ladder on frame,
Oh,
and
I
then
see. Okay.
you're doing a skateboard platform, we're not doing a skateboard platform because it's ladder on frame.
Oh, right. I see.
Where do the batteries go?
Where are the batteries? Where do the batteries live? Right. That's your question.
Right.
Is it similar to like the Omni? Like, are you sitting on them in like, are they under the seats? Like, like, yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. Yeah, again, this was an EV concept. So, you can skin
Right.
it as an EV and just put an ICE engine, right? And then call it your
Yeah.
concept, right? Because you don't have to actualize the concept. It's more about like what this vehicle looks like when you're showing off
Yeah.
concepts, as long as you don't have other people driving them. Uh, so yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting. But and then we kind of talked about this over the week, was like, yes, the Innova electric version would be interesting, but the target market for or the target use of Innovas in India are generally long trips. So Innova is a people mover used to go from city to city. So if you had an electric version of the Innova, that is a lot more complicated in terms of your range. If you are running a city taxi service where you need to move 7 people around, your Uber XLs and so on, right? The Uber SUV, then I can still see like a EV Innova working out a little better for you in some sense. But those also tend to be smaller MPVs, right? The Ertiga class, or things like that. So that's a different thing. But what we
To be
talked about,
fair,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't think Toyota India has made this announcement that it's coming in India.
Yeah, no. We're just trying to speculate on what this would look like, given that Innova is
Yeah.
such a big
Yeah.
vehicle in India, right? Like it's one of their biggest markets,
True.
or at
True.
least in terms of the profit margin that they make in India is crazy, right? So
True.
so we speculated that an Innova would make a lot more sense if it was a plug-in hybrid or a hybrid electric vehicle as compared to a pure electric vehicle, just to deal with the range anxiety and the ability to
Hmm.
make these long trips. And lo and behold, a rumor came out that there is a chance of um, a hybrid version of the Innova that may come out soon, um, which in fact they're actually going to change the drivetrain on the platform, in the sense that they're going to switch over from rear wheel drive to front wheel drive to make this happen. And there was some rumors, cannot be substantiated, again, could just be chatter on these auto enthusiast forums like Team BHP, that there may even be a diesel hybrid, if such a thing is even possible. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Toyota has a bunch of EV um, EV plays that they're trying to make, and we spoke about this in the last podcast, that the US market tends to be crossover focused. So the main one that Toyota is doing is the Corolla Cross. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's an interesting space for Toyota to play, right? So if in India they were to release a car that's gonna kind of rescue what's left of their brand,
Mm,
um, it's gonna be this. They should do it because this is a very competitive segment, and if
yep.
the pricing is right, and based on what you have there in
US
USD,
dollar
they
USD
could do
pricing.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
really good price point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Even converting the same segment of car
Mm,
to rupees, it's
yeah.
it's it's a
Yeah.
pretty good proposition, right?
Yeah.
So if they can do this, they should,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it'll go a much longer way in building their brand in India rather
Mm-hmm.
than the whole Suzuki joint venture
Yeah. Yeah.
in putting out these different cars, which basically Suzuki builds and rebadges as Toyotas.
Mm.
So this sort of thing would make a lot of sales, and people like that brand. People like Toyotas,
Yes.
in that it directly implies reliability and
Reliability.
quality,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Regardless of
Mm.
if they have a Toyota or not, everybody knows
Mm.
this. It's
Yeah.
been that way for ages. Um, and Toyota's Corolla, regular Corolla, since we're talking about the Cross, we're
Mm.
talking about the regular Corolla right now. That's been sold in India for a very long time, and
Yes.
they've stopped selling that
Yeah.
over the past couple of years, right? So they've stopped selling that because either, again, speculation, sales probably down anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
either besides that, the sedan segment isn't selling that well
Mm.
in India. Um, and people just want SUVs at this point, at that
Yep.
price point.
Yep.
So this is a good alternative to fill in that gap that the Corolla has left for India, right?
Yeah.
So they could bring over the Corolla Cross and fill that gap. And similarly, Honda has the HRV as well. It was the same segment
Mm.
again.
Yeah.
They should just do these. Like all these Japanese manufacturers, they should just do it. Bring these segment of cars so that at least they can stay competitive and relevant.
Yeah, so my issue with some of these, like that idea that these could be carried forward through to India, I think is the wheelbase tax restriction, right? So the idea is that uh, if you are above a certain length in terms
Yeah,
of
it's
your 4
4
meters,
meters.
4 meters,
Yeah, but
you
that's fine.
oh,
That's
but
this is
I see.
all of
So
the Creta, the Seltos,
I see, I
all of
see,
those was
I see. It's
those were
only
the same players, right?
I see. It's only the EcoSport that comes under that. Oh, I
The
see.
EcoSport, the Venue, the Sonnet, the Brezza, the Urban Cruiser,
Urban
the
Cruiser,
Urban
yeah,
Cruise
nice.
from Toyota.
Yeah,
All of this stuff is
that's
their sub
the
4 meter category.
that's not no longer the hottest segment it used to be back in the day, right? It was really hot when
Yeah,
it
it isn't
released.
as
Yeah,
hot. I mean,
yeah.
people are still buying a lot of these cars,
Yeah,
right?
okay,
But
okay, okay.
obviously, it isn't as hyped as before because people are graduating away from that, looking at it as, oh, okay, cool, I got this sub 4 meter car, so I'm getting a tax break on that. People aren't that concerned about it. People aren't that price sensitive, especially if you look at the fact that when you get to that price point, right? So with these cars, if you want to pull up the Hyundai Venue or the
Oh,
Kia
yeah.
Sonnet, just
Okay.
as for the viewers.
Yeah.
So this segment of cars,
the
basically
Venue,
they're
yeah.
tiny, right? They're hatchbacks. They're a little raised, so they get that SUV driving feel and everything, or crossover driving feel. People are moving away from this because of their price point. Now in India, by the time that you spec this out to be anything half decent,
Yeah.
you're getting into a second tier on the next level of car, which is no longer relevant to the whole sub 4 meter category,
I see.
right?
I
So
see.
by the time you end up paying for this thing, you're basically, you could have got the second level variant of the next increment, right? So
Yeah.
so for example, here, if you were to buy a Venue on that list,
Yeah.
and you spec it out completely, you're getting into buying a mid-tier option of the Kona.
I
right?
see. I see.
And I feel it's the same thing everywhere, but I'm just saying that to make the point that the sub 4 meter category and the tax break is not that exciting anymore.
I see. Yeah, that's interesting. So, what is Hyundai and Kia's electric play in India going to be when?
The Kona has been sold for a while.
Okay,
They
I see.
didn't. I don't know how many pieces they moved.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
see. Yeah, because
there
MG.
aren't much, like
Yeah.
100 units a month. Stuff.
Okay,
It's not
and
really that much.
MG was had some limited success with the ZS EV as well, right? So I
Yeah,
see.
they've just launched the petrol or a naturally aspirated version of that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how that's going as well. So the ZS EV, I've seen quite a few.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
are buying electric vehicles, right? So it's not like people aren't buying these,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very niche, very niche.
Yeah.
And
No,
like you said last time, it's only people with places to charge them up.
Yeah, exactly. You need the your charging point. That's going to be really important for this adoption
Yeah.
to work. Okay, let's see. So, moving on to another really interesting topic. This is something that I saw show up on my news feed, and it was hilarious when I saw it. I think it was on Reddit actually. So, let's say you just bought a brand new Audi E-tron, and you decided that I'm not going to go full spec. Let me option out this car, and I don't want all the features. So one of the features that's really popular, especially in the US and with most luxury vehicles, is multi-zone climate conditioning or climate control, in the sense that you can set temperature zones in your car, and you can set different zones for the driver, passengers, and things like that. And it tends to be a top end or a mid to top end option in most vehicles. So there was apparently a person who bought their Audi e-tron, found a button that synchronizes the temperatures between all of the climate zones. But the problem is, if you press it, it's a hardware button, and if you press it, you actually get a message saying that this function has not been purchased. So this is actually absolutely hilarious that the car industry is moving sort of in this direction. I mean, this is obviously just one data point of one car, but in retrospect, it makes sense that a car manufacturer does this, right? Like they want to try to differentiate the features in a way that's easier, which is do it in software rather than hardware. So upload a firmware spec of the car once it's been optioned, and say that these are the options that the consumer has selected. This basically came from Tesla, by the way. So Tesla essentially engineers all of their cars with all of the hardware, and then uploads a specific firmware or a specific version of the software in the car. They can even do it over the air. They can do OTA updates for specs, which is interesting that way. But then they can paywall features away from you. But the fact that this is tied to a hardware button is just absolutely hilarious.
Do you know what? I as much as I get that, okay. I
Yeah.
mean, this is hilarious on its
Yeah,
own.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
back to the whole Tesla point of
Yeah.
they're building in all the hardware, but not selling you the software that you can use it.
Yeah.
Right? How are they making money off of that? Like, if they're giving you the hardware, they're basically giving you the free goods,
Uh-huh.
but the hardware costs something, right? So, I mean, unless that's built into the price of the vehicle anyway. But
So I think,
it's, I
yeah.
don't know, mental block. It's
No,
it's
so,
it's a
so
hard sell.
no, so for the stuff that Tesla's doing, you can argue that the software is where a lot of the cost comes into play, especially with FSD. So the
Well,
cost of the hardware
thing
sensors
is,
is not much compared to the amount of work and effort and money and engineering effort and to train those machine learning models or FSD, which is why they want to monetize the software. But for things like this, yeah, no, this is absolutely, like, it seems like the other
yeah.
way around, right? I don't know.
No, this is ridiculous. Like, why give the button in the first place, right? So you have a button, and I'm especially curious about why they've chosen that verbiage, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
that's a
not
direct slap in the face. Like,
like
you
you did
function
not,
you have not purchased.
you have not purchased this. I'm sorry, you have not purchased this function. Yeah, no. So
Yeah,
the reason, the cost reason is also apparent. Like, this is to make sure that you have a single production line, and then you don't at the
yeah. No,
end of
no.
the
I get
production line
the
you don't have.
efficiencies are there.
Yeah, at the end of the production line you don't have this other guy who has the other button that needs to be put in, right? So
No, that's a big deal, right? So if you think about all these different conventional brands where you have the same car essentially, but 7 different variants,
yeah.
just imagine the amount of QA that needs to go in over there. Like, where you're basically looking at the spec sheet at the
Mm,
QA end of the line of the production,
yeah.
and basically making sure that everything matches up.
Mm,
But if you're building the same thing over and over again and then just pushing the software later,
yeah.
then that's a lot of time saved in QA.
Yeah.
But the thing about your point about, like, yeah, investment in software, that's more expensive than the hardware and all of that
Mm,
stuff. Yeah, up to some extent, yes. But the
mm,
software, once it's built, it's fine. Yes, it needs maintenance and upkeep and all of that.
mm.
But the cost of that initial building out the software that supports all of this, it should be absorbed, at some point, where you're selling essentially the same software, overarching software at least, and basically getting more money off of it again and again
Yeah. Now,
from, and you've just given out a lot of hardware, right, to
yeah,
people who aren't going to use it.
yeah.
I'm just curious, is there a way to upgrade your software if you want to, like, buy let's say a base Tesla without any of the cool features? Can you
I
upgrade
believe, yeah, I believe you can actually opt into things like, yes, I would like
after
this
you've
upgrade.
bought it?
Yeah, yeah. But the problem, again, just like other technology industries, is that Tesla's trying to make a lot of these features subscription based. So they're trying to get monthly uh, cash out of it. And this actually happened with
I'm not mad at
Toyota.
that.
Oh, no, no, no. I am especially mad at, like, there was a play that Toyota tried to do where if you didn't opt in for their connected car subscription plan, um, various hardware features on your key fob don't work. So, like, this is again just like the Audi e-tron, like, and because of the backlash that happened online, Toyota backtracked from this decision. I'll pull that up, but in the meantime, you can talk about what your feelings about something like that might be. Sorry to put you on the spot, but yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting what Tesla's doing. I mean, the subscription-based model. I'm saying I'm not mad about that is because
Yeah.
there's a lot of times that you
Ah,
get really excited in a showroom. You get really
yeah,
excited in a
yeah,
showroom.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
opt in for the full option. Yes, I'm going to use all of this stuff every day of my life and all my
Yeah.
drives, and this is going to be perfect. I'm going to, experience all of this firsthand. And all that stuff is very exciting when you're in the showroom.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
hear me
no.
out. So the thing is, if in 2 months' time you don't want any of those features in specific, don't subscribe to it anymore. Don't pay for
Yeah,
it anymore.
yeah, I guess so. So the topic that I just pulled up was that apparently, so Toyota had a remote start feature that was available on the
Right.
key fobs. So remote start was generally something that you paid for when you buy the car, but
Right.
Toyota was planning to move this over to a subscription model, and
Okay.
basically it's part of the Toyota connected car
Yeah.
subscription model or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the 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 fact is, yeah, like everything is there for this to work, but it's paywalled behind a subscription. Like you have the remote start hardware, you have the key fob that supports it, but the moment you don't pay for the subscription anymore, your remote start doesn't work anymore. And
Right.
the consumer backlash on this idea, on this was so high that Toyota basically is reviewing it. I don't know if they removed it completely, but the idea is you need remote connect. Remote connect is no longer a one time option that you pay on your car for. Instead, it's just this subscription that you have to pay for.
Right.
And the moment your subscription runs out, or if you stuff like that, yeah, it just stops working anymore. There was another version of the same problem with Tesla, which was that if you bought a non-subscription feature that was tied to your Tesla account, like FSD, for example, and then you decide to sell your car,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that that feature carries forward to
I
the
was I
new
was
buyer.
I was thinking of exactly this
Yeah,
a few minutes ago, like when
yeah,
you talked about the
yeah,
whole subscription plan, right?
yeah,
Is
yeah,
if if you buy a feature with a car and it's on your spec sheet when you buy the car, right?
yeah.
When you go to sell it and some of those features are missing, what's going to happen?
It's buyer beware, right? In general, when you sell a car,
It's
it's like
so much harder.
you're buying the car as is. Like I can't guarantee you anything after this. Like take it to a so your diagnostics mechanic that you take to will also probably have to review the
Tesla
subscription,
certified and
the
everything.
the
Yeah.
subscription sheet, or like you do a software check or something like that, and tell you that, hey, guess what, okay, so you're buying this, FSD is going to run out from this. It's going to be similar to, I guess, selling a car in certain markets where the insurance is tied to the car and not to the driver.
Oh yes.
So when you say that, oh, by the way, there's 3 months left of insurance left on the
Left on the
car,
insurance plan. Yeah.
on the car,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, insurance is tied to the car in a lot of places. India, Middle
yeah,
East, I
yeah,
think is
yeah, yeah.
a
It's tied to
big
the car,
market that
not
we've
to
both
not
experienced as well.
yeah, not to the
Yeah, it just
driver.
transfers over to the next owner. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter who
exactly.
the driver is and so on.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. And to wrap up the automotive segment, we'll, technically not automotive, we can consider this to be mobility. so, so there's a upstart called Jetson that's trying to build or is building an electric aircraft that's $92,000 and weighs only 190 pounds. So it's lighter than I am. The aircraft, that is. And it's got a high discharge lithium ion battery and 8 electric motors, which allows you to fly around for 20 minutes.
20 minutes. That's the big catch over there, right? So 20 minutes.
Yeah.
What applications besides just kicks does this really have, right? It's like I'm looking at it like the new age dune buggy, right? You go out for a spin, come back, that's it. But even then, a dune buggy is going to run a lot more than 20 minutes.
And also you need a fleet of these in case you're busy, so you can charge them while others go out, and like
Battery swaps.
Yeah, and I'm super afraid. Like, if an electric car stops functioning, you're still on the ground, right? Like, nothing's gonna happen to you. But if,
Well, these have those
yeah,
emergency
they're designed to,
parachutes and everything.
yeah, they're designed like they can estimate the remaining battery time somewhat
And
accurately
land.
and land. But then that's another problem. Like, where are you going to land? Are you going to land in a safe
Like,
place?
what
Are you
if
going
you're on top of the ocean? Like,
top of the
what then?
ocean, middle of the highway? So I'm assuming like stuff like this will be launched with like geofenced pads, like this.
Yeah,
So
you need that.
yeah, similar to like some of the drone regulations that are coming out of like drone
Yeah,
providers will have to map out their flight plans and in accordance with geofencing rules and things like that.
yeah.
Um, I would
I think
my
this would just qualify as a drone, right? So it just because I think drones are
but
also
if it has a
regulated.
but it has a human in it, so then
No,
other
it's not a drone anymore. It's
yeah,
a thing.
there's other organizations will get involved the moment there's a human in it because it's not unmanned anymore.
Right,
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 so it's not a
right.
UAV anymore. I would say, figure out package deliveries first before putting humans into flying
Yeah,
drones, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's
Yeah,
see what Amazon does with that,
that's
right?
yeah,
So package delivery.
that's my point. But so that the if they're able to improve the range and the fly time and things like that, the main thing that I can think of, this is a limited market. It's a market that's been struggling quite a bit, and it's generally heli transport. So let's see, even taking drones out of the equation, in multiple top tier cities or big financial cities, like people generally want to skip the rush or the
Hmm.
transit time that it takes for you to get from an airport to the middle of the city to the downtown, for example. Um,
Hmm.
One chopper company that's trying to be the Uber of this segment is Blade.
Well,
Blade, yeah,
since
Blade
you
is
mentioned Uber,
yeah,
Uber has Uber Heli.
yeah. Uber has Uber Heli as well. So this is like they're trying to disrupt the space in the sense that they're allowing you to book on a per seat basis of helicopter rides
Oh,
instead of having to book the entire chopper.
so
And
ride sharing in proper
in a
norms.
helicopter, yeah. And
Hmm.
in certain cities, and this is absolutely a function of the connectivity of the city. Like, for example, New York is absolutely horrendous when it comes to connectivity between JFK and Manhattan, and the fact that there isn't any high speed rail or those kind of quick connect options between New York City and or JFK and Manhattan.
Yeah, what comes to mind is that old Seinfeld episode, right? He's trying to get to the
Right,
airport, trying to figure out the
right,
route.
right. And then you can argue that it's very similar in a lot of Indian tier one cities. I mean, Bangalore comes to mind. People talk
Yes.
about their travel time to Kempegowda airport being longer than the actual flight time.
I think Uber Heli used to operate
Yeah, yeah,
exactly that route, Bangalore
yeah,
Electronic City to
yeah.
airport. Uh, Uber Air, it's called now, I
Yeah,
think.
okay, I see. So, and Blade is in India as well, but Blade is mostly looking at intercity transport. So they're looking at like Mumbai, Pune, or Bangalore, Mysore, those kinds of
Oh, okay.
routes. That's mostly their heli routes that they're looking at. There's another big problem or a big cloud surrounding helicopter services in India, which is safety. Our CDS passed away in a military helicopter. The chief of defense staff, the former chief of defense staff,
Yeah.
passed away. And typically, these heli incidents, safety incidents, happen with adverse weather conditions. And
Mm.
with these helicopters are classified as rotating wing aircraft, right? They're not fixed wing aircraft like regular planes. Fixed wing aircraft have a lot more. Their flights tend to be a lot more structured in the sense of what flight plan they use, and they're very clear on they fly in higher altitudes and things like that. Helicopters not so much. But my point being, typically there needs to be some navigation and guidance systems that are better for helicopters. They are a lot more involved with helicopters than they are for regular aircraft, in the sense that they need highly accurate terrain information. So you need to know
Right.
where buildings are, where mountains are, what their heights are approximately, because you're traveling at a much lower altitude in
Right.
helicopters. And this is one of those things where there is a definite difference between, say, established markets like the US, where helicopters are flying all over the place, whether it's news choppers or whether it's medivac or general transport. Helicopter based mobility services are a lot more established in the US compared to India. And I think there is ever since this high profile accident, there's been some movement in the Indian government to make those kinds of terrain map detail and information more available for civilian
Right.
transport and things like that. It's a security issue, right? Like, so high resolution terrain information is a security asset. So, the Defense Department wants first say on that kind of information. And there is some pushback there, but like it's becoming clearer that if this market is to grow, then it also needs access to this high resolution information to make safe transport possible. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of some of the information that I picked up about that. So, Govind, you want to talk about our next topic, which is the car mode that Spotify is testing?
Yeah. So Spotify is testing all these different things for cars, right? So
Yeah,
there's a huge user base there. And
yeah,
before the car mode, I'm still fuzzy on what that exactly is. It's just different ways of using Spotify in a car. But
yeah.
specifically interesting is the CarThing that they announced a while ago, and I think they're
Oh, the
shipping those
thing,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Yeah, the CarThing, right? So that's what it's called,
yes,
the CarThing.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
Excellent name. Props on the name,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
What is the thing? The thing. It's the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, it's awesome. Like when you talk to somebody else, you'll also be, hey, do you have that car thing that Spotify makes? Like that's literally what it's
Exactly,
called.
right?
It's genius. It's genius that they
Yeah.
named it that.
And look at
Yeah,
the price point at
yeah, yeah,
$90.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
It's
absolutely.
affordable. It's really
Yeah,
affordable, right? So
yeah.
if you have a legacy, well, not a Subaru Legacy, if you have a legacy car
Legacy car. Yeah. Oh,
which
absolutely.
doesn't have a
Yeah,
screen, this is a quick upgrade.
yeah,
And considering the number of people who subscribe to Spotify,
yeah,
this is a really big win for all of those people, right? To just
yeah,
get like, and just how compact it is and how it's designed.
yeah.
I'm loving that thing.
I like it, but I don't like this UX fragmentation of your car experience between apps.
Yeah.
Like ideally,
Oh yeah.
I just want Android Auto to handle everything. I don't want to have to be, uh, I don't want to switch between apps or between devices. And in fact, what's really interesting is how Spotify is trying to promote this thing. If you if for viewers of the video podcast, like they have these different scenarios where you're using the thing inside your car, and they're showing a mix of legacy audio systems as well as current generation audio systems. And
Yeah.
what they're showing is the thing is only for Spotify, and you still have your navigation running on whatever your current ICE setup is on your
Yeah.
car.
See, the thing is, this video makes no sense, right? They
Yeah,
shouldn't have done this. They should have just picked all the, even if not legacy car, because I think this is a Camry, what they're
yeah,
showing
yeah,
right now.
yeah,
They,
yeah,
besides that, they should just show regular these days cars without head units, like which have screens in them, right? So which
yeah,
have
yeah,
your
yeah.
little single din units or double din units which have no screen on them. It should just use modern cars with the same story where they're not spec'd a screen.
I mean, but that's more of an India thing, right? Like, it's
Do all
hard for
cars
us.
get screens in
And
the
not
US right now?
not necessarily screens, but they'll at least come with like a dumb radio. You'll be hard pressed
Yeah,
to
but
find a car without a radio.
no. That's what I mean. So
Oh,
a
I see,
radio
I
is
see.
fine.
Oh,
So
I
a
see.
radio without a screen
Oh,
still
I see,
needs
I
a
see. Like a
screen,
screen.
some kind
I
of
see, I see, I
yeah,
see.
yeah. The
Okay.
screen in specific, not just
Oh, I
the
see.
functionality of the radio. So it's just
I thought you were talking about like Innova, for example. Even though you spend 18 lakhs on Innova, you can get an you get an empty DIN 2 slot, right, in India when you buy an Innova.
exactly.
That's not a
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
here in the US.
No, I mean this is definitely good there, but at that point, if I'm not getting anything at that
Yeah.
point, I just get a proper Android or Auto supported Sony or JVC or Kenwood or whatever, whoever's making those now.
You see,
Sony's making some decent Android Auto ones.
yeah. You see, I love the idea of the Spotify car thing, but I would buy this if it was just plain Android Auto. If you gave me an Android Auto thing, I would buy this. That's my take on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
no,
yeah.
that's a very good. Yeah, why don't people do that? That's great.
Yeah, right? Like,
Yeah, like
yeah.
people who don't have a head unit but want Android Auto. But you know what the thing is? At that point, you're plugging in your phone to something similar to the
Yeah,
same size as your
exactly,
phone.
exactly. But yeah, so the benefit of the Spotify car thing is those physical buttons. And I think that's the main thing. Is like you have this sort of like physical button sort of thing that is kind of easier for you to manipulate while
Yeah,
you.
I'm thinking that's a volume
Yeah,
knob, nothing
yeah,
else.
yeah,
I think the
yeah,
touchscreen is still relevant. I
yeah,
don't know what the single button does. Probably a home button.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, volume knob. I like the tactile volume knob, and which
yeah,
we can
yeah,
physically spin around.
yeah.
But putting Android Auto on that without anything else,
Because
I don't know. I
Android,
think it's too small.
because Android
You could
Auto,
run it on your phone. Oh, you
yeah.
can't run it on your phone anymore.
What
Android
the
Auto stop support for on phone Android Auto.
what?
Oh, did you
What?
not know this? This is
Uh,
months ago.
this is like a full
Yeah,
this is going to be a whole segment on this podcast now. Oh my god, when did this happen?
this was months ago. Google stopped support for Android Auto on your phone. Like you have to be running it on a
Oh,
car.
oh my god. Why, Google? Why? Like
Yeah, yeah. That's
I'm out of that space because I did use it when I had my OnePlus 5 and it was great when it lasted.
yeah.
But since I switched over to the iPhone, it was one of those things that I was like, oh yeah,
Can you do CarPlay on iPhone
no,
without?
no, no, no.
Oh,
CarPlay is
okay, so then that's this meeting competition.
yeah, yeah.
That's it.
This is
But
a
that's a big
yeah,
downgrade,
yeah.
though.
It's a downgrade for feature parity. Like it's one of those few instances where that happens. It's weird, man.
Yeah,
Like
I think it was more to do with compatibility support with different phone sizes.
okay,
It was because of that.
yeah, well,
Because with the car screen market, it's pretty standardized. So you have your 8 inches, your 7 inches, your 10.25 inches, and all of that stuff.
yeah,
It's pretty
yeah.
standard. It's like 4 or 5 different variants. That's about it. And everything around that. If you have like a huge Tesla style screen,
Yeah,
then a segment of that is going to be dedicated to your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's
I
not the entire
see.
screen still. It doesn't blow up all the way.
All right.
So I think that had a lot of thing to do with the motivation behind why
Mm,
Google chose to do that.
I see. So yeah, so if there are any hardware tech entrepreneurs listening to this podcast, swoop in
Make a
this
card thing for
yeah for Android Auto and slash CarPlay. That
yeah
just that works in that form factor that you can kind of snap onto a dash and just works. Like not everybody's going to go for that physical din replacement. In certain cars you can't even do it because brackets might not be available to manipulate the thing, or sorry, not the thing, but manipulate your car's audio system, right? So so yeah, if there are any hardware entrepreneurs, Google just gave you an opening.
yeah, and then for what it's worth, throw in some AI assistant as well, and then people buy
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I think that usually was built into CarPlay and Android Auto is like
Oh
you
no,
could.
that's true. That's
Yeah,
true. I
yeah,
mean, I'm
yeah,
just saying that
yeah,
there's a lot of traction for selling things with
yeah.
supports Alexa
Mm,
in the Indian market, especially, right? So
I just
everything supports Alexa. So it's just
yeah,
about building skills and then making it
yeah.
available on Alexa. So yeah, there
What
is a market to do that.
yeah, what we don't know is what the exact nature of the agreement between Google and the car manufacturers are in terms of whether Google has explicitly
Yeah,
told them that they won't support like third party people trying to steal this market off of you. Whether you're a OEM audio device manufacturer or I mean like if audio device
yeah,
manufacturers exist then possibly there is space for you without any legal ramifications for you to create one of those
yeah.
things.
No,
Yeah.
because they do have those Sony head units, and
Yeah.
well, yeah, CarPlay as well. There is a licensing fee. I know that for sure.
But fine. Do it. Like yeah. And make sure it's like you know at least half the cost of a full size because you don't have more heavy hardware and like you don't need a full amp or those kinds of things that drive your audio system, right? Yeah, and you don't need to
Yeah,
support steering controls or things like that. Anyway, it is what it is. All right. Yeah,
it
so
brings me back to the days of your audio cassette into aux cable.
hey, I'm still using an FM modulator for my like
Oh my God.
yeah. Yeah, I'm still in the dark ages when it comes to my car. My car's a
Keeping it real. So much
yeah.
for TechCynics, no?
Yeah, maybe because I'm cynical, that's why I'm still running a car that doesn't have a subscription plan, or
Yeah.
any of those things involved in it. Okay, and we have a short gaming segment on today's podcast, and it's just Sony's latest announcement last week about their new PlayStation Plus that's launching. Um, TLDR, PlayStation Plus is launching. They're going to have a lot more games, but they are not going to have day one releases like of their first party titles like Xbox.
Is
So
it Game Pass though?
that's what I said. Like
Is it like Game Pass? Yeah.
it is like Game Pass in the sense that there's a lot of games that you can finally play on PlayStation Plus. Like the library is much bigger, but they're not committing to day one first party releases, which is one of the big pulling points or one of the big strengths of Xbox Game Pass was that if you're a Game Pass member and the next Halo comes out or the next Forza comes out, you have it day one. Microsoft's not trying to extract more money out of you, but Sony is a firm believer in those day one, day two, day three sales of their games, first party games. So if they have a first party God of War title or a first party, Sony really wants to have those first party sales, and I think it's a big part of their software sales strategy, and they are not willing to make that commitment of first party games being available on the subscription service because maybe it's just a lack of confidence of how much the subscription service will sell. But the other like sort of main reason now that I think about it is that the Xbox Game Pass is multi-platform in the sense that it supports all Windows PCs. Like it's up to you whether you have a GPU.
Right.
It's up to you whether you have a GPU or not. So the target market for the Xbox Game Pass is much bigger than
Yeah,
the
for sure. I
console
mean,
market, right?
that was always going to be a thing, right? So
Yeah.
Xbox, Microsoft, Windows, PlayStation's not even competing the PC space anyway. So they
Yeah.
didn't need to get into. I mean, it's going to confuse people if they start doing that. And their games are mostly not designed, or at least their exclusives are not designed to be compatible with PC anyway. So
Yeah. But here's the thing. They have multiple tiers, just like Xbox Game Pass. They have the basic, and then they have the ultimate versions that allow for like more titles or more. Yeah, streaming is available on PlayStation Plus Premium, which is the highest tier. But the idea in the premium version is you get the back catalog over streaming. Like you get the PS3,
oh,
PS2, which again, PlayStation has a big nostalgia factor working for them. I would argue more than Xbox in that sense. But yeah, like if I paid for the highest tier of PlayStation Plus, like there should have been a super high premium tier which guaranteed first day access to the first party titles
yeah.
as soon as they're on launch. I think personally that's what
But
I
what's
think.
stopping them from doing that? What do you think is stopping them from doing that?
Exactly what I said. I believe they don't think that their target subscription base size is big enough for them to recoup the costs that they may lose out
Right.
on those day one, day two, day three sales.
Right.
Their first party studio library, the number of studios that they have is much smaller than Microsoft, right? Microsoft just turned
Right.
into this absolute giant after the Activision and then Bethesda plays that they did, right? Like they just opened their bank account and threw money in acquiring both Bethesda and
Yeah.
Activision, and as a result,
Activision, including all the different sub brands like King and everything
yeah,
else.
oh yeah, 100%. And the moment they did that, Xbox Game Pass suddenly became so compelling. And
Yeah.
I don't know how much money
Speaking of
they're.
Game Pass,
Yeah, go
they're
ahead.
just expanded, right? So I just looked at an article saying that they've expanded PC Game Pass to even more countries, making it more available. So you got Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam. So all these
Oh
South
yeah,
Asian countries who now are a completely new segment of audience for Game Pass. This is
yeah.
gonna, I think people are gonna appreciate that.
Not only that, but they also expanded their third party offerings. So they I don't know, like, so they started with EA, right? So EA Play became a part of X,
Right.
like, got bundled with the Xbox Game Pass. So obviously there's some kind of revenue sharing or some kind of agreement that happened between Xbox and EA. But they also got Ubisoft into the game. Now, Ubisoft Plus is also now available on Xbox Game Pass, which means you get Siege and Extraction and a bunch of other Ubisoft Plus games now on Xbox Game Pass. I'm telling you, man, for what was the amount? 340, 350 a month? And especially
Yeah,
if you're
that's
like
still.
if you're a PC gamer, this is a this is a no-brainer, man. As long as you are not very keen on being a physical collector of games and you would like to monetize your game
Yeah.
collection by taking it forward into the secondary market, the secondary sales market, which arguably in India, I don't know even how big that is or how much money you can make
Well, they
selling
have
your game
CEX
discs.
here.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
CEX, and there are, especially in some of the bigger tier cities, there are active game swap and game,
Yeah.
the
Communities are there. Yeah.
communities are there in India, but
I mean, that was always the thing with digital games, right? So a lot of people I
yeah,
know are refraining from doing digital
yeah,
purchases
yeah,
on two levels, right? One is with these first party
mm,
digital platforms, right? So if
yeah,
you're trying to buy something off of Sony directly, or
yeah,
if you're trying to buy something off of the Xbox
mm,
store, so a lot of these are not marked down in price forever. Like it's
yeah,
a lot of the AAA titles never come down in price, digital. But if you
mm,
look at the same thing as a physical disc
mm,
on even your Amazons and everything else, just firsthand, not even I'm not even talking about the used market at this point.
yeah,
I'm talking about just the disc itself is going to
yeah,
be marked down quite often, right? So
yeah,
you are going to get a deal by buying a physical copy of the game.
mm,
So yeah, a lot of people are reticent to buy the digital copies
okay,
just because of this whole resellability factor.
mm,
I know there are people who collect them and everything, but yeah,
yeah.
personally, I would just, yeah, why?
I mean, again, the cost benefit analysis. We were talking about this in the previous podcast, which was like your average AAA title that you want to buy on
Mm.
release in India is going to cost you 4,000 rupees in India, right?
Well, for
67.
PS5, yes.
Yeah, for
For
PS5.
PS5,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know what that amount. Like, if you wanted to buy Halo Infinite or Forza Horizon in India right now, I don't know what that cost is. But the question is, how does that cost compare to paying 349 rupees 12 times? And then having access to what, 400, 500 games, including that AAA title? Come on, it's a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, yeah, we're
it's
not really
crazy.
comparing apples to apples
Yeah,
at that point.
yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. But that's the thing. Microsoft has that ability to leverage both its user base as well as its extensive library of first-party games because it assimilated all of these developers to have
Genius, yeah.
this amazing subscription model that cannot be undercut by price. Yeah. I mean, so the point is to hook the people in and then gradually increase the price, right? Obviously. Because Xbox Game
Yeah,
Pass,
no, for sure.
yeah.
I mean, no, for sure. It's the
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah,
Netflix
yeah,
thing
yeah,
again,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Netflix, Amazon Prime. This is the general
bring
subscription
them
playbook.
in, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
when they get hooked,
yeah. And then they can't live without it. They increase the prices. Yes, absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it doesn't go above the price of one AAA title per month.
They're gamifying the game purchasing experience, getting people
Yeah.
hooked.
All right. And with that, that's the end of the TechCynics podcast episode 2. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.